Jaclyn Cosmetics, aka Jaclyn Hill, released her first ever eyeshadow palette. Is it blendable? Is the formula good? Is the quality good? We're gonna find out. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. If you love makeup as much as I do, then you are in the right place. My name is Kara and I'm just obsessed with makeup. Again, Jaclyn Cosmetics, Jaclyn Hill had released her first ever eyeshadow palette in collaboration with her mother, Robin. I just think it's really cool that her first ever palette is in collaboration with her mother, and it's for Mother's Day, and just the whole theme of it is very, very nice and sentimental. So not only did she come out with a new palette, she came out with a eyeshadow primer along with some other things, but I only picked up the eyeshadow palette along with the eyeshadow primer. We're gonna test it out today. We're gonna see how her formula is. This is her first palette, so all eyes are on her right now. She does have a few palettes with Morphe, but it's Morphe's formula. This is her formula. So this is her first formula on her own. Let's see how she did. This is the box that the palette's gonna come in. It's like a gold going into a black. It says Jaclyn Cosmetics on the front. And then here is the eyeshadow palette. It's black. It's got this gold and silvery kind of explosion detail going on. The Jaclyn across the front is raised and in gold. The palette goes for $49. You get 20 shades. It's made in the United States and it has a 12-month shelf life. Now, she did come out with a special edition palette on top of this, which it's exactly the same. The only difference is the packaging. The packaging on the special edition palette has her and her mother on it, and then when you open it, on the inside it has a lot of pictures of mother with their children, since this is based around Mother's Day. You can only get that special edition palette on Jaclyn Cosmetics' website, which I will link down below. It is the same price. There is no price difference between the regular palette and her special edition palette. Now, when you open the palette, there is no mirror, but you have 20 beautiful neutral type shades. The pans are huge. I mean, you could see my finger against one of the pans. The pans are pretty big, but let me give you a close-up of the shades. So here are all the 20 shades. You can see it starts with light and goes down to dark. I love when palettes are custom made like that. I did want to read real quick on the back of the packaging that the palette comes in what it says. It says, "Luxury is timeless, so keep it going with classic neutrals for an all-day polish and deep shimmers for an all-out after-dark glam." So basically, this palette is going to be great for daytime looks as well as nighttime looks. Like I said earlier, I also did pick up her eyeshadow primer, which is called First Base. It goes for $20. It has a 6-month shelf life, and it is made in Canada. Here is the packaging for the primer. It has the same concept as the palette. It's gold going into black. And then the details on the box also say a smoothing eyeshadow primer that extends the wear of your timeless eye looks. And then here's the primer. It's a typical primer tube. It's black with a gold lid. It's going around the same concept of the whole collection. And then here is your applicator. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a look with this palette today. I'm very excited to try out her formula, but before we get into the tutorial, I'm gonna get you some swatches. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do it in 2 parts because there are 20 shades. I don't think I could fit 20 shades on my entire arm. So I'm gonna do the first 2 rows and then the second 2 rows. So here are the first 10 shades. The first 3 shades are pretty tough to see because they kind of blend in with my skin tone. But you have Meat and Potatoes, Biscuit, Honey, Peanty Butter, Farm Girl, Thankful, French Silk, Apple Pie, Family AF, and Tootsie. And then here are the last 10 shades, which are the darker mattes. You have Small Town, So Ucky, Puddin' Girl, Rachy, Bad Moosey, TC, Mamacita, Moo, Buddy, and Because I Said So. The shades actually swatched very, very nicely. I did notice they were a little bit dry, like the matte shades were a little dry, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I'm comparing them to the Morphe palettes with Jaclyn Hill. The Morphe palettes are more buttery, kind of melt into your skin. These are not like that, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now that we got done swatching, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna zoom you in. I'm gonna apply the primer. We're gonna do a look and we're gonna see how these shadows, how they perform. All right, so we are going to prime our eyes with the First Base Eyeshadow Primer. And apparently this is supposed to dry down to like a velvety matte. It's supposed to be smoothing. So we will see. I put both on, some on both eyes. And then, so at first it feels kind of slippery. It's very light. It reminds me of the Too Faced Shadow Insurance. It's a little bit lighter than the Urban Decay, but they kind of give the same vibes. But as it's drying down, I can feel it starting to dry down, and it's getting a little bit more tacky. But yeah, at first it's like it feels very slippery and oily, but it's definitely not oily. A little absolutely goes a long way, and oh wow. It absolutely looks like it blurred and smoothed my eyelids. Like my eyelids look so smooth right now. Wow. So I would probably definitely wear this on its own with no eyeshadow on a day like I'm not wearing eyeshadow or makeup, which doesn't really happen often, but on days that I'm not wearing any makeup and I want my eyes just to feel a little bit, I guess, more better, like I would wear this because it just smooths out my eyelids. So the true test for this primer is how the shadows are gonna apply over top because it is still a little tacky. I tend to worry when a primer is a little tacky because you go in with eyeshadow and then the eyeshadow sticks to right where you put it. So I'm not setting this with any powder. I'm not gonna do any of that. We're just gonna go right in with the palette. The first shade I'm gonna go into is So Ucky. The shadow is not too powdery, just a little bit, so make sure you tap off that excess. And I'm gonna put that in the crease area and see how these shades are along with this primer. And so far, the primer is working out so well. The shadow's not sticking to like any area of my lid, which is a great thing. This is a great transition shade. I love that it can be built up and it is blending out beautifully so far. I love that this is a neutral palette with a pop of color in it, so you can absolutely get a ton of daytime looks as well as some really nice evening looks and give yourself a little bit of color. What I'm noticing is that the shades, well, at least this shade, isn't very pigmented. So you can build up on it so you don't have to worry about getting too much on your brush. So this would be great for beginners. I used a fluffy brush putting in the transition shade. Now I'm gonna go into a little bit more of a dense brush and I'm gonna go into the shade Small Town. And I'm gonna start kind of put that on the outer lid and then kind of diffuse it up into the crease. And I wonder how these shades are gonna blend. Like, are they going to blend together and look muddy, or are they going to blend where they're gonna hold their own and look good? So far, blending the shades together, they are looking okay. They're holding their own. They're not like blending and making it look muddy, which is a great thing. Like I said earlier, you do have to, if you want to build something up, you are going to have to go into that shade multiple times because going in first with one application, it's not gonna give you a ton of pigment. So if you want something a little bit deeper, you're gonna have to go into that shade a few times. The next shade I'm gonna go into, and I'm gonna use my finger, I'm gonna go into the shade Apple Pie, and I'm going to smooth that on my lid. And oh yeah, look at that. Look how pretty that is. Oh my goodness. And I'm putting that all over the lid. Doing the same thing to the other side. This color is shade is so pretty. Now, if you can't, like I have a hard time getting into my inner corner. If you have a hard time getting into that inner corner, just grab a small brush and get in there. So I'm taking just a small brush just to get in there since my finger wouldn't fit. Then I'm gonna take my brush from earlier and just kind of blend over top of the shimmer just to kind of blend it in. So now I do want to deepen up the outer corner a little bit more, so I'm going to go into the shade TC, and then I'm just going to put it on the outer lid, like my outer V kind of, just to kind of deepen that up. Back to my fluffy brush just to kind of blend over top to diffuse it. Now I want to do something a little different. I'm taking a flat type brush and I'm going to go into the shade French Silk. And then I only put that like on the tip of the brush. And what I'm gonna do is I am gonna go like right on top of that shimmer shade. And then after I like apply it on top, I'm kind of gonna bring it down just a little bit. Well, that looks so pretty. Now I'm also gonna bring that down to my inner corner and use that as like an inner corner highlight. This kind of just makes that shimmer shade pop as well as open your eyes, like make them brighter. For the lower lash line, I am gonna take like a flat angled brush and I'm gonna go into the shade TC and I'm gonna put that on the outer third of my lid. I'm only gonna bring it to like almost the middle of my lower lash line. Then I'm gonna go back into So Ucky, and I'm gonna use that to blend out the whole lower lash line. And then I'm gonna go back into French Silk. I'm gonna put that on the inner third of my lower lash line, connecting it to the inner corner. All right, so I am gonna go put some lashes on and I'll come back, I'll show you the finished look, and then I'll tell you my thoughts on the palette. All right, I'm back and let me give you a close-up of the finished look. So the look came out really pretty. I actually really like this palette. She did a really good job for her first palette by herself. The collab is a great collab. It's very sentimental. This is something that she's probably always going to remember, not just because it's her first palette, but because of the collab and Mother's Day. The primer is a decent primer. I don't think the only thing special about the primer that I didn't really notice about any other primers is the smoothing and blurring of it. Like I said earlier, I would wear this on its own when I'm not wearing makeup, and it's gonna make my eyelids just look super smooth and soft. And that's really nice to have in a primer. But the shadows blended over so nicely. You didn't have to set it. So the primer, I would absolutely recommend. The palette, it's a good neutral palette. For $49, I mean, I don't know. I typically go for higher end eyeshadows. I am an eyeshadow obsessed fanatic, and I am typically buying higher end eyeshadows. So when it comes to like cheaper drugstore type eyeshadows, I don't know if there's something out there that's gonna be close to quality like this, because this is really good quality. It's not bad. They blend out. The only thing is the shadows aren't that pigmented, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's more of a personal preference, and it's good for beginners. So this palette would be great for a first timer learning how to blend eyeshadows. So I do think the palette is worth it. So that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I will link everything down in the description box below. I'll link everything else that's on my face. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I hope to see you all again soon.